Hello. If you are watching on YouTube right now, you're like, why are you standing up, Donica? Basically because I was too lazy to bring my chair in. So we're just going to stand up. We're going to do today's podcast pretty quick. I have basically one thing that I want to talk about just kind of as a whole. It's more of a theme. And the scriptures we'd kind of look at would be Ezra chapters 4-6, and then Nehemiah chapters 2, 4, and 6. And essentially, it's just looking at how there is always opposition to the Lord's work, right? There is opposition in all things, which means that for every good thing, Heavenly Father is trying to get done. Not trying, but excuse me. For all the work that the prophets are trying to do, for all the work that the missionaries are trying to do, for all the work all of us are down here trying to do, there's opposition in that work. Jake and I were talking about it today, about how interesting it is that we seem to, we live in this world where the common argument, if you will, against there being a God is the fact that bad things happen, right? And how, well, if you were righteous and you did all the things you were supposed to do, then you would have an easy life, right? That's like this common belief that keeps coming up, so to speak, right? Where people are like, well, if God was real, then children wouldn't die. If God was real, then good people wouldn't get cancer. If God was real, then fill in the blank here, right? And Jake and I were talking about it. It's like, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but we know that the way that our lives go is not necessarily or always in conjunction with how righteous we are. Now, sometimes by being unrighteous, we create problems for ourselves, right? We create issues for ourselves when we don't do the things Heavenly Father has asked us to do, because we create natural consequences, right? If I decide that I'm just gonna say, forget about it and drive however I want, and if I end up in an accident, or if I end up getting pulled over and get a speeding ticket or a reckless driving ticket or losing my license, it's not because lawyers and lawmakers and policemen don't exist. It's because I have agency and I can make bad choices. I definitely can make bad choices. I'm really good at it. But on the same note, just because I drive and follow the rules and stay on my side of the road and obey stop signs and traffic lights and the speed limit and stuff, doesn't necessarily mean I will never ever have an accident, because there are other people on the road. There are animals on the road. There are weather conditions. There are cars that have technical mess ups sometimes, right? There's a lot of things that can happen. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with me making good or bad choices. I like to look at Christ. Right? That's where we always come back to. Look at Christ, because Christ obviously lived a perfect life. He did not make any mistakes. He did not ever drive outside the lines. He always followed the rules, right? By God's rules, not necessarily the Pharisees' rules, because the Pharisees kind of got a little power hungry with the rules sometimes. But but he did not have what I would by any means call a easy life or a unchallenged life. And I think that sometimes we forget that the point of coming here to this world isn't to have this super easy life where we never do anything and we're never challenged. It's to learn to have a complete experience. And that means that sometimes we're going to make really good choices and bad things are still going to happen, because we live in a fallen world. We live in a world where other people can make choices that can directly and indirectly affect us. And so I think sometimes when life feels particularly heavy and particularly unfair, one thing that really helps me is remembering that it is fair, but it may not be fair in this life, right? It is fair in the grand scheme. that we are eternal beings, and in the eternal viewpoint, it will be fair. Heavenly Father is a just God, and because of that, it will always, justice will be served, right? We'll always have some justice. Sorry, I'm trying to play with my mic over here. But that's essentially what I wanted to talk about. There's always going to be opposition to the Lord's work, because that's like Satan's job, right? Is he's here to break apart families. He's here to create wars and rumors of wars, and to lead as many of us astray as he can, whether that is by having us have false gods, whether it's by distracting us with our Facebook and Instagram follower numbers. It doesn't matter. The point is as long as we're doing something other than focusing on Christ. And so I will leave you with that. Talk to you next week.